Today I'm reviewing Dragon's Tiger 1 late production with Zimmerit 6383. I would venture to say it's been my favorite kit that I've built so far, and I recommend it all the time for people who want to do late Tigers because it is just very easy and you don't need much aftermarket. 6383 was just 6406 without the command antenna and with retooled hull parts with Zimmerit. 6406 was just 6253 without the goodies and the magic tracks. So, as I said in my Tiger video, these things are nearly identical plastic-wise. So essentially this is 6253, except for there's no metal parts and there's no command antennas, and then you get Zimmerit. So I recommend this one all the time. If you want to get the old version of 6253 and pimp it out with ATAC Zimmerit and stuff, that's great, but this thing is ready to go right away. Marking options, bunch of tritonals. I did build this one. So, worth mentioning that's super different. There's nothing really. If you do a lot of Tigers, I mean everything in here is pretty much standard. So the instructions. By this point in the series of Tigers, you've got a lot more blue here than we used to, because of things like they're reusing. Well, these would be, now they're Zim. Here's probably the non-Zim rear plate and the Zim without Zim command plate, so that's why those two are there. Numerous mantlets without Zim. This is an early mantlet, so that's why that's not used. These could be early idlers. Magic tracks aren't in here, so that's why that jig is not used. I've never seen them call out for intentional use this front plate without fenders. Maybe that was for the DAC, like the 501 DAC. Don't know. So, swing arm torsion bars, which are together, going in. You put these little stops on the inside. You have to be very careful because I believe there's one that does not match, so all the rest of them are this one kind, and there's this little guy here who's a different type because he jams up against a flat piece. They have you put wheels on here, and you can do that with steel wheeled tanks if you want. I like to paint raw metal around here, so I don't, so I still leave them off. Rear plate assembly, not a whole lot here. There's the little torch for warming the engine. They're telling you to remove a part to have a hole in the Zimmerit if you want to. Certain 101st SS Tigers had smooth spots in the Zim, depending upon the company in that division, Abteilung, whatever. It's on different sides, and some of these marking options have them incorrect, so check your reference. Exhausts and the armored covers. This isn't terribly complicated. Still annoyed with this where they have the single piece and then the two little U's. They've done that in one piece. Multi-part jack. I, by the way, leave these off until painting because I like to paint the exhaust separately. Here they're telling you to pre-paint the inside. Here's all the fan drives and stuff. I tend to leave this photo etch off because, frankly, I've never seen that shape on the inside of a real Tiger. I've only seen the inside of a few in images, but I don't even know what this is. The Bovington Tiger does not have that, but that's an early. But the Dragon version of the Bovington Tiger has this, so I don't know. Okay, so here's the openable driver's viewport. The bow MG, which seems a bit silly to have that many parts, but it's cool. There's your options for removing the two different pieces of Zimmerit. Engine deck is pretty simple on these without fivals. This does still come with metal for the conduit for the light. Tow cables are styrene and I believe also metal. I used styrene when I did it, and they look actually pretty good. Piece of sprue still has the jig for the toe clamps, or the tool clamps. And here's all the tools going on the upper deck, choosing engine hatches open or closed. This all actually goes pretty quick once you get going. Photo etch on the back. I actually leave this bit out, it annoys me. I tend to have fit issues with that. And with that little piece that goes around the fans. Actually, I have that right here. With those gold things. It's really tough to get those in there. Alright, so there in the past has been issues with the order of things that this goes in, so I tend to actually put on, I do happen to have a half-built Tiger here, it's a different one, but I tend to put on this piece, and then I'll probably do the two main plates at the same time. Not sure what that other one is, but there can be fit issues if you put like this guy on first. You need to put the glacis on first, and then like jam. So this would go second, and you jam him in there and pull down like that. As long as you do it all at one time, it's no problem anyway. But if you happen to glue one part of it and then later try to do it, it might not work. This looks correct though, where you have this glued to that whole top and then you jam this in. The thing you don't want to do is put this on and then try to get this on. There's their metal tow cable. Their styrene one looks pretty good. Here is your choice of muzzle brake or mantlet, right? So certain 101st SS ones, especially like Wittmann's 205 and I think 212 as well, had this KT small style. And then here's the larger one. If I remember correctly, these might be mislabeled in here. And then you have to check your reference as well, because you've got binocular and monocular gun sights. There's a lot of differences in the mantlets. I think in this case you'd have to drill one out because you only get the one with Zim. Here's the gun. They've been using this exact same assembly since the initial toolings. I don't use the spring, and honestly, so I'll show you my not so impressive skill level. I've never been able to figure out what they want me to do with that little piece there. I just leave it off. It somehow holds I think this piece here, once it all gets together, holds it kind of where it's supposed to be, but I do it in a weird order, so I can't make use of that, so I just don't use it. I've never had a problem, so. And then here's the breech guard stuff and the spent shell basket going on. Turret assembly. There's a decent driver's seat in this one, but this was before they updated the loader seat. A little bit of stuff here, some periscopes and the loader's hatch and the close defense weapon. Be very, very careful of this. I have twice now sanded off the detail. It is just this little bit of stuff, basically weld marks, that go to the top of these periscope covers, because I'm cleaning it up and I'm cruising and I'm not thinking, and I just sand it smooth, and then I have to figure out how to get it on. Options for this, I always do this one with lates, because this was for the watertight thing, I think, so which these didn't have, the deep weighting. You can replace the padlocks on the stowage bin. I don't really. And all these crazy periscopes and the pad that goes in the cupola turret going together. Spare tracks going on there. Choice of escape hatch thing. And then your annoying spare track with individual teeth. Use aftermarket if you can. Final step, turret goes on hull. There's a little antenna guy here. The markings, I'll just show you real quick. Here's another 101st. That one would have been with Wittmann screw if you remember that kind of thing. As was 112, this guy. Since I've already built this, the older version I built came with a dragon card and this familiar little box for the pre-bent grills, and then I never even used that shovel cover. This one, being a later issue that I got from Scale Hobbyist last year, just came with that in the box. So, but the first thing we'll look at is the DS. It is slightly flashy, but not crushed by my eyes. Again, I don't use these, but these look tolerable. But my only complaint, I guess, would be that they look a little... No, they don't even look that flashy. There's like a teensy bit. So I guess for DS, these are pretty good. But they're still DS. So in here we've got 2 cupolas. One has a rain slit in it. This guy here, you can see a little slit right there. That's for rain to run down. Okay, there's 2 of them. I believe that's the only difference. They're very clean. This is your periscopes. That crap out of the way. Periscopes for the cupola itself, and then all other clear parts essentially. Not even sure what. I don't think this is used. And then this is like the vision block for the bow plate. Then in here, I don't like the way they package this stuff anymore. But there's your way too thick tow rope. That's the PE Zimmerit piece. That goes right... I'm just going to break stuff. That is here. It doesn't even really pick up on camera. But right where the Zim... Now you can see that it's different. So this is the Zim that's molded on, and there's the Zim that's the PE. So that's what that little guy is off by himself. These are pre-molded, or pre-bent rather, but now just flapped in a bag with that goofy spring and the sheet of the shovel thing. I kind of doubt that these will hold their correct shape, but maybe I'm being negative. This would be your track changing cable. Looks like a guitar string. Your standard Tiger PE fret with tool clamps. Those pieces I don't use. The boxes that go around the fans. This is pretty standard stuff. And then the decals, 221 and 112, those were the 2 I was gonna use those, and then I was gonna use those, but actually use aftermarket versions of those. There's a few more on there. They're very nice. Very thin. The ones that I did use, I used some of the divisional markings. They went down really well. So, look at that mess. Plastic. So this is a very familiar, just the 2 rear louver things, each profile or each half. So it goes in 2 halves. Been being used for a while, still looks pretty clean. Not flashy. Now the mid Tiger that I've been building, the mid with Zim, actually there was quite a bit of flash in that kit. I was really unpleasantly surprised. There's our standard Tiger A gun sprue. Nothing looks wrong with these bits. Even the little guys aren't flashy yet, and this thing has been getting cranked out for 10 years now. And we've got our Overhaul. Now this comes with the fuel filler caps like molded, so they're all kind of in an X shape. Any of the new ones, like this guy here, this is the mid with Zim, they're separate pieces. But on any of the lates, at least to date, they're molded in, they're all in the same kind of, I don't know if they're identical. No, they're slightly different, so that's good. I've never heard anyone like look at one and be like, whoa, those are molded in, that's very unrealistic, no one cares. And And all the welds on here look really good. I'm not sure how updated this has been since the initial tooling. Maybe I should pull that thing out of the box and check, but these tool clamps look a little bit on the thick side. They do them better than this now. I think that's that one special torsion bar guy that you need. But yeah, these clamps will do, but they're a little bit thicker than I'm used to seeing them now. Here's your Zimmerit parts. I really, really like the way they look on this kit. I'll bring in some comparison bits as well. So here is the side plates, and that just looks wicked to me. For comparison, here is the side plates of the mid with Zimmerit, which I feel like I need to turn into the light to even pick up. Okay, then here's the rear plates. Both. Let's see if I can get them both in there. Now, I've heard criticisms of this one because there's no smooth spots here like there is here. You can see that there is no zim where the exhausts go on this guy. But the depth is quite different. Let's see if I can find. There we go. So then the mantlet as well. This is the mid's mantlet, and this is the lates. They're like not even in the same category. Not that I can tell you which one is more accurately in scale, but they're very, very different. So maybe it's my, simpleness, but I dig the louder, more easy to see zim. It does pick up a wash and dry brushing perfectly, which is the whole point. It just looks awesome. I didn't have any problems fitting the exhausts here either, which was one of the criticisms of there not being smooth spots there. And then on the opposite side here, you see the spots where you're supposed to cut out the Zimmerit here, 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 and then there's plastic pieces that you glue to the back of this. But some of the tanks that they give you decal schemes for, that's incorrect. Like the square should be on this side. This depends on the unit. But I think that looks fantastic. Suspension screws are broken up into 4 of these. 4 torsion bars per, with the swing arms molded right to the torsion bars, which is fine. The majority of the little ends that you glue into the hull and then glue the bars into. And then these are just your spare track links. Let's see, what did I do on this one? I used the 7 for the turret, so you have to cut and clean 7 of these, and therefore 14 of these, which is, by the way, huge pain. And then I think I actually used them as well for the tracks on the front of the thing. So here, now it's kind of a pain, whatever. These were aftermarket, but I think these I use those for. I had debated, because I have so many late Tiger kits, actually using all of these to actually track an entire tank. Hell no, it's a terrible idea. But there's a look at the swing arms. And the tracks are really nice. I think the knockout marks, yeah, because of the knockouts there's no ejector pin marks. However, there are 4 connection points per, and these, the one that I remember being a pain in the butt is, if you look at a Tiger link, you can't see it here. There's like a raised, like an extrusion, a big round part. So that's kind of obvious that it's round, and if you don't round this one off correctly, it looks wonky. So you get 4 of these guys. Now, there was some damage to this one. This is more of the modern, everything's in a couple of bags packaging. So when I was opening it up, I found this, which is a part of an exhaust. I'm pretty sure it's the one you use as well. So here's his counterpart. He's also mangled. Should be okay. The final drives look sweet. The sprockets look really good. The idler arms look good. There's a little dot on there to tell where they should go. These are those pins that knock the track pins back in. The two versions of the driver's visor. Here's the one piece, and then up here is pieces for the multi-piece sliding one. There's your U-shaped tow hooks. Back side of the machine gun mount. There's the other parts of that visor. These look a little flashy. I'm trying to see if these exhausts look a little flashy. This is one of those sprues that's been around for a very, very long time. These armored mounts still look good, or armored covers, and the idlers still seem pretty good too. Apart from the damage, this sprue still holds up, but this is in every Tiger ever, this sprue. Check. I dare you. Every Tiger. This is not, because sometimes these are on a separate tiny little sprue. So these are the fuel tanks and the mountings for the fan drives. The periscope covers for the hatches. These are the arms for if the hatches are open. Headlights, you'll never need two in a late, so you've got more headlights than you need. And then you've got a version for if the headlights are stowed as well, right there. There's the bow MG, the little head cover thing. Nice fire extinguisher. That guy's looking a little flashy. I think that's just his nature though. Radiators, driver and radio ops hatches, and then the fan drives. Still holding up. I mean, a lot of this stuff is still pretty old. I'm not sure when this particular sprue dates to. Could be from the initial 6253, I'm not positive. Actually, I am positive because I've checked the sprue maps and they match, so that is where that's from. Here's one of these bunch of sprues all molded together, kind of duct taped style. Just looks like some guy had to make a mold real quick. Throw in that one, that one, that one. In my head, that's what happens anyway. So sometimes these come separately, in the past anyway. So this is your TA, which is tools without clamps, other accessory type things. Track changing cable eyelets, towing cable eyelets, and padlock pieces. All of this stuff still looks rather crisp. I can't quite focus on it as well as I wish I could. So this plate, or sprue, pardon, is the only one that has a plate with Zimmerit on it that is not on the quote-unquote Zimmerit sprue, but this gives me another opportunity to compare the mids Zimmerit with the late Zimmerit. That is like not even in the same category. And these are some rear plates you'll never use because there's no Zim on them, so that's... see if I can identify which one's a command. I think this would be the command because it's got the mount for the antenna tube right there. I don't know what the crap that is. It's super weird. Like a feather in there. Alright. And then here is your extensions for the front of the hull. A little bit of trivia. If you're making Carius's mid, it has this style of hull extension, not this style, which is standard for a mid. So you'd have to use spare of these on a mid to make Carius's 217. Apart from the Tiger P Mantlet in the early tracks. That's the thing you need. Also, there's two types of loader's hatch. I've also heard that this was like a myth, having the Tiger 2's loader's hatch on a Tiger 1. Like, people said it happened, but I don't know that it actually did happen. That's the mount for the heater, and that's the heater itself, a little blowtorch. which is now standard, choosing between two different types of roof, the welded two plates or the single bent plate, depending on the Tiger you're making. Loader's hatch stuff, close support weapon. Two different type of mantlet without Zim. Here we see no coaxial MG, but both monocular. So escape hatch that you won't use, but there's the muzzle brakes. And the workable parts for the inside of the escape hatch. The very famous pea sprue, which ends up in many forms in a lot of kits. Still looks pretty clean. There's the engine deck, the glacis you won't use, the jack block, the cleaning rods. That's a command antenna, or a command. What is this? It's only on commands, I think. This guy, like it's an inertial starter, two-part inertial starter. I want to say that's what that is, but I could be wrong. Or that's just an inertial starter, and on a command it's in a different spot. I think that's what it is. But it is still two-part on the lates. These can be a huge pain. These are for holding like the towing clevises. This is the plate for inertial starting. There's the other part of the starter. These are covers for the periscopes. Those look pretty clean. More exhaust. There's two different kinds. By the way, none of which are correct. I don't know how many people have talked about that at length, but a Tiger's exhaust should have, it should be like this if you're looking at the back of it, with one facing straight back and then like a star pattern. But on this, if you build it correctly, it'll be sort of like this. Or, I can't get it in shot. But like that, which is wrong. It should be like that. But it ends up like this. So you actually have to fill those and just do it by hand. There's the flappers, which I think I actually skip most of the time. There's their styrene track changing cable. The hull sides that you won't use. And they're very hard to use as spares or anything else. More driver ends. Radio op hatches. These tow cables, which do look pretty good. That's a command antenna tube, which you can alter this to use, but is not called for, because this is not a 3-in-1. But all the parts still exist for the 3-in-1. And your rear mud flaps. Wheels, you get two of these. Dealing with wheels is a little bit easier on a late because you don't have 48 wheels. Like on the mid I'm doing right now, I've got 4 different cups of types of wheels because each of these two have to go into this one. It's pretty intense. With a late, usually you just end up with the two together and the singles that then go together when you put it on. So it's complicated, but not as complicated. They look pretty good. Maybe a little less crisp than I'd like. They're one of the things that I thought didn't look great on mine when I built it, but that could have just been me. Here's the smaller idler for the late Tigers. There's the wood cover for the fuel tanks. More parts for that. The wheels look pretty good though. I do feel like they're a little soft, but maybe I'm just getting picky. Here's the famous R sprue, which is anything other than a DAC or an initial turret bin. It's kind of bent. Trying to softly bend that back. Spare track holders, loader's periscope. This thing may be in need of a retool, but I don't like, see, just bagging things together versus separately, this is what you get. Come on, get it. I try to get it as not angry as possible. What I should do is just cut it off, but that's the turret. Stowage bin, our sprue, been around forever. The molded on padlocks that I usually leave. They look okay to me. This is the D sprue, I believe, yep. And here's that detail I was talking about you need to be careful of sanding off. I can't even see it right now. Like just right there. It's like a little dot with like a little weld. And that goes in the cupola, and it's really easy to think that's just flashy. These are parts of the turret mounted MG, which I put on backwards in the one I built. That's the commander's seat. Binocular mantlet that you won't use. You will use these two parts, and this for sure, and the actual commander's hatch. This stuff all looks really good when it's together, though. I'm working on one right now. So, at least the mid's got a lot of similar parts. Like there's the cupola. Parts of the way built up. I sanded off all that detail, so I had to kind of guess where it went. But that is this exact sprue. And it still has the jig for the magic tracks, which is fun, even though it doesn't come with it. And then you got this guy, also in every Tiger kit ever. Your exhaust covers, or whatever they call those, and your side fenders. Your sprockets, which are only lates. The newer kits are coming with separate hubs where you can sort of make different types of sprockets. But spare antenna tube, awful little bastard clamps for cabling, which is what these are as well, I think. Some bolt cutters with the clamp on. More little bits. Those are the exhausts that I was talking about. So there's 5 pins. There's 2, 2, and 1. 2, 2, and 1. I find that they're always crooked. Like always crooked. And that's my last one. They're not very straight. If you look really close, I've started leaving more of the singular one on just to try to balance it out. I must, could very well be doing something wrong, but... And that's the last sprue that's in there. Also, of course, you got to cut these apart and bend them if you want it to be any kind of realistic. So lastly, we've got our standard Tiger hull tub with the beautiful scalloping and hull plate separation right there. It's like second to none in my opinion. Only this is molded on, these 2 bump stops. Everything else you got to glue on. Things are beautiful. Now these do have, there's no choice about having it workable, it just is workable. Just deal with it. Which I kind of didn't like the first time I built it, but it worked out. Because I was afraid it would sag and look funny, but they sit right. Very sturdy. And the detail that's in there is very, very good, including the welds in the bottom. Here's the turret. Now here we'll compare the mid. So, 6383 late, 6700 mid. The turret, Zimmerit is thicker on the mid than it is in its hull, but it's still not as uneven or rough. Here is my built-up 6383. I used aftermarket decals for Tiger 112. They came in the kit, but they looked a little too modern and clean, the number style. I replaced the tracks with AFV Club workable ones because I just like the way they sag better. And I had a bit of trouble. Obviously, I put this on upside down like a goofball. But that's pretty much it. Everything else went together really, really easily. I don't have much to complain about. I thought that these clips here were very fiddly. As I lost this one. I found this to be a huge pain, gluing on these, the guide horns to these, and for this piece up front. I could pull these out, but it probably scratched the paint. Mainly because I had to constantly re-glue on these guide teeth as I was painting, so I would just knock them off with the airbrush or something. Also, as I always do, cut out the notches on the turret so I can just set it down. But there is a bit of an angle off on my Mantlet, but that's an atom error, that is not the kit. So overall, it went fast and it looks awesome. So whenever anybody asks me about lates, I always say 6383 because the ATAC Zim, it's going to cost you quite a bit, and to get a late without it, they're kind of either the reissue that's coming out of 6253, or they can be more or as expensive as this one, and unless you want to do something specific like chip the Zimmerit, it just doesn't make sense to buy a different late other than this one if you're going Dragon. So that's 6383, still my recommendation for a late Tiger one, because it's just got the Zim, and it's just great. All around, great. You may have to replace the tracks, and for AFE Club that's about 20, for Freewool that's 40 with shipping from Poland. And you can get it still, the kit, I think, for, I'm going to say 50-ish, but I have no proof of that. Alternatively, now here's it's the kit that came before it, right? So 6406, you're still going to pay probably 60, all the same plastic except the command antennas, except you'll need to get your own aftermarket. Alternatively to that, you can still get this guy if you want, which has been going for about 90 lately. The tanks are going to look exactly the same if you pull it off anyway, and this stupid thing is way more money than it should be, but it does have a bunch of neat metal stuff. But in the end, 6383 is the way to go, in my opinion. Be wary of the re-release of this coming out in July or whenever it's coming out. It will be what I just reviewed, except without all the good stuff that made this. So even after that comes out, that will be the best late on the market, in my opinion, from Dragon.